نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. Inshallah, we will start our study from ayat number 130, Surah AlBaqarah. And the topic of our study today is also mainly Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. In the previous few lessons, we've been studying Ibrahim alayhi salam's character, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him go through all those tests and he passed them, and Allah mentions his name with honor. And we also see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him by showed us in Quran what the du'as of Ibrahim alayhi salam were. The du'as of a person also shows what they're occupied with. His du'as are mostly about guidance, details about guidance, and about his descendants to be guided. So this shows what is the major concern for that person. What is his priority? In ayats today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell us again about how Allah has chosen him, and in this dunya and akhirah, and why it was like that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions his millat, which is his way, his lifestyle, his routine kind of, and why would people not follow him even after recognizing, even after identifying what a fine person Ibrahim alayhi salam was. So let's start studying, and inshallah we'll discuss a little bit more as we study the ayats. 130, Waman, and who, yarghabu, ra ghain ba is the root, which means to turn away, and from millati Ibrahima, from the millat of Ibrahim, from the religion of Ibrahim, or from the creed, from the lifestyle of Ibrahim, from the ways of Ibrahim alayhi salam, illa except man who, safiha, fooled, seen faha means foolish, so those who are fooled, nafsahu, by themselves, by their nafs. So the first part of this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that who will not follow Ibrahim alayhi salam except for the person who is foolish. Those who have brains, those who are wise, those who are intelligent, they would be wise enough to follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's what is said over here. Why? Because everyone, we've already discussed that, not just Muslims, but the Yahud, the Jews and the Christians and the polytheists, they all used to connect themselves to Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is how much honor, how much respect they all had for Ibrahim alayhi salam. And they all recognized that he was a very nice person, he was a beloved prophet, his ways were totally awesome, and all these things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us realize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the awareness that if you so much understand that he was one of the chosen people, then why would somebody not follow him? Why would you say praises about somebody and not follow? And this is, unfortunately, the sad part is that we still do that. In our day-to-day life, sometimes we come across some colleague, some friend, some neighbor, we would actually be able to point out that they are really nice person, and they do not deceive anyone or backbite, or they don't use bad language, and there would be a long list of things, good things that they would do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this awareness that this happens every day in your life, that you are able to see what the right thing is, who is doing the right thing, and you would still not follow their path. You would still keep going. When it comes to acting upon it, you are just zero. And why would you do that? Only a foolish person will not be able to follow, because a person who has intelligence, whose nafs, whose soul is not fooling him, whose nafs is not justifying to him, no, we have to do this. We need to be successful. To become successful, we have to be street smart. We have to cut corners. We have to do this. And then you justify those things. On the one hand, you see that a person with his qualities and with his religion, and in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Ibrahim alayhi salam, that only those especially Allah mentions this because Quran was revealed on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Allah mentions that if you are all able to see and are so proud to connect with Ibrahim alayhi salam, then why would you not follow in his creed? And then in the next part of this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَقَدْ, and indeed, إِسْتَفَيْنَاهُ, Swad fa wow or Swad fa ya, chosen for because of purity. And Stafai na means we who chose him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we chose him for the purity of his soul with dunya in the world. Wa innahu, and indeed he, fil akhirati, in the akhirah, in the hereafter, la, surely, minal salihin, he will be among the salihin, among the righteous. So Allah mentions that he definitely, you are right in understanding that he was a righteous prophet, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose him. Allah gave him a very high level, very high darajat. Why? Because of all the amal. The next ayat will explain to us why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him such a high grade, even among the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a very high level, and all those rituals that we see in Umrah, in Hajj, it related to Eid al-Adha, related to slaughtering the animals, all those things. Maqam Ibrahim in near Kaaba, and even our beautiful Durud Sharif, Durud Ibrahim, they're all after Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we chose him, we selected him out of the purity of his soul. And according to our definition, if somebody should be chosen, they should be given, a life of luxury and no difficulties, and all the problems should be solved. But what do we see in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam? What would we do if we are chosen like that? If we are told to exile, if we are almost thrown in the fire, if we are not given a child for a very old age, and even after given a child, if we are told to go and slaughter him, the level of Muslims that we are, unfortunately, we would just complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we would say, Ya Allah, why did you put me in so many difficulties? Why are you putting me in so much test? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this personality, this example, to remind us that this is what chosen means, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to promote you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give you a very high level in Jannah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes you his favorite when he makes you go through some tests. So these tests, we should not complain, not that we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tests, but we should try to pass the test by being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by making dua instead of using bad words, instead of using words of disappointment, instead of using curse words. Like sometimes people these days, what do we do at the times of difficulty? Our words are not astaghfirullah or Ya Allah, please have mercy on me. They are mostly like, why did you do this to me? Ya Allah, why did you have to do this for me? Or, oh my God, and all those kinds of words. And even there are worse words that we are used to using. And our next generation, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them. So this is to show you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions over here that he was selected in this dunya, and also he will be among the salihin, among the righteous people in the akhirah. So that is how a person ends up with a good grade, with the best place in the akhirah, which is the permanent life and which is what matters. In the next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the proof of this claim that Allah has made here, that he was among the chosen, and the millat of Ibrahim was the one that everyone is supposed to follow. What is the millat of Ibrahim? That is explained in detail in the next ayat, and this is a very famous thing about Ibrahim alayhi salam as well. Let's read ayat number 131, is when, you can read this as whenever, Qala said, lahu, to him, Rabbuhu, his Lord. What did Allah say to him? Aslim, meaning submit yourself. Sin lam mim is the root. The word Islam also comes from that. Qala, he said, Ibrahim alayhi salam always said, Aslamtu, I have submitted myself completely. Meaning, I do not have any hesitation in following your commands, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Li Rabbil Alameen, to the Lord, for my Lord, Alameen, of the worlds. So this was the attitude of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is how humble he was. This is how passionate he was to fulfill the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how ready he was. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to follow, that a person who will not follow this routine of being so ready to follow the commands of Allah, that person is wasting their life. That person is fooled by their nafs. If their nafs is justifying to them that what you're doing is just fine, you have to find this kind of balance in this dunya. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that when you see the righteous thing, you have to follow that. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was the perfect example of that, because for every command that was given to him, his response was, Allah, I'm ready. Ya Allah, I'm doing this. Ya Allah, this is my action according to your command. Today, if we cannot talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but when we read the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this should be our response. This should be our attitude towards reading Quran. When we read the Quran, that is when we are understanding the commands, and we should not say, oh, I like all these things, I can follow these things, but not this thing, this thing, this thing. Oh, in today's world, riba is so important. Oh, in today's world, I have to dress up like this. So sometimes people need to be given awareness that, see, this is the person you respect so much. These are the qualities why you respect this person so much. So why don't you follow him? Because if you don't follow in his footsteps, you're just wasting your life. You're wasting your akhirah. Because if you want to become the chosen one like this person, then these were his actions. Follow what he did, and you will become the chosen one. It will be difficult, yes, because you can see from his life there were difficulties, but look at how Allah has honored him. So if you want to become one of the honored ones, if you want to be called among the Salihin ones in the akhirah, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting from you. Whenever you are told Aslim, you should be able to say Aslam too. Whenever you read any command in Quran, you should say, Ya Allah, I am ready, I am following in this command. These ayat 130 and 131 tell us about the lifestyle of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the next two ayat also kind of tell us about the lifestyle, but related to how nearing his death or towards his descendants, what were his concerns for the children. And he was always worried for their guidance. And over here we see one more thing, how Ibrahim alayhi salam's lifestyle tells us what should be our lifestyle with our children. Let's read ayat number 132. Wawassa, and enjoined. Wasiya, wawsadiya, is kind of a very highly recommended thing. It also has kind of a feel of a promise within that. It's like something is ordained upon you. So wawassa, and enjoined, ordered, biha, it, Ibrahim alayhi salam, to whom? Banihi, upon his sons. Who else did that? Wa Yaqubu, and Yaqub alayhi salam. What did they say? Ya baniya, oh my sons. This is a way of talking to your children in a very loving manner. Ya baniya, oh my sons. Inna Allaha, indeed Allah, istafa, has chosen, the same root, Swat Fa Waw, lakum, for you, ad-dina, the religion. Fala tamutunna, so do not. Tamutunna, the root is mim waw ta, which means mouth, which means death. So do not die, illa, except, wa antum, and while you are, muslimun, seen lam mim, the same root as we've studied in the previous ayat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects these words of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam and presents it over here for us. Number one, primarily to show the Yahud and the Nasara, the Jews and the Christians, at the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this is what Yaqub alayhi salam. Why is the name of Yaqub alayhi salam mentioned over here? Yes, he was a grandchild of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but Allah mentions him specially because the laqab, the title of Yaqub alayhi salam, was Israel, and from his children are Bani Israel, and the Jews and the Christians come from those tribes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proves to them that this is not what Yaqub alayhi salam had taught. and because you guys claim that we are following what our forefathers taught us, so this and the next ayat both will prove to them as well. And also for us, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us the etiquettes of how to raise children, wasiya. Mostly it means the instructions given at the time of death, but it's not always necessarily it, because we don't know when the death will come. And the same thing is also mentioned in this ayat, that they are telling their children that make sure that you understand that deen is what is chosen by Allah for you. So give it the highest priority in your life. Don't just keep thinking about your career, what you're going to study, how many children you'll have, where your property will be, what kind of car. Do not just keep thinking about these things. Deen is what Allah wants you to think about. Islam is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to think about. Give it the highest priority. Secondly, to make sure that you don't die, but except that you are a Muslim. How can you make sure of that? Nobody knows the time of their death, correct? So the only sure method to die as a Muslim is to live every minute of your life, every moment of your life as a Muslim, practicing Muslim. And that is what they taught their children. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that this is how you're supposed to live your life. This is how you have to do the parenting. Whenever there is a time where you have a teaching moment, you have to tell your child, because only telling them one time in life will not help. You have to constantly remind them. You have to constantly make them realize that this is the beauty of Islam, that you're protected from so many other sins, other bad deeds that you see people doing around you. In the world these days, you will see children will come home, tell you about what others did, whether it is school, whether it is college, whether it is colleagues. So whether or not they mention to you, but if you keep reminding them the beauty of Islam and do not wait for a very grave thing that is they are going to do and then tell them, no, we are Muslims, we don't marry this in this way, we don't do this, that will not have so much effect as to something that is constantly reminded to them in a nice, in a beautiful manner. Just like you see over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even tells us how these told their children, Ya Baniya, oh my sons. So in a nice way, finding the time when they will be listening to you, when it will not be done in a manner that is sarcasm or anger or complete anxiety. That is how they will remember that I have to make sure that I make all my decisions in life according to Islam, according to the Sharia. And the next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, or kuntum, were you shuhada'a, Shin hadal, meaning witness. Were you the witness is when hadara, hadadra, meaning came to Yaqub alayhi salam, al-mautu, the maut, the death. So this is kind of a you can see the sarcasm over here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning it like this, especially for the Jews who used to very confidently claim that, oh, we are told by our forefathers that this is the right religion and that is why we are doing it, and what we are doing everyone should follow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it like this, that were you over there? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is presenting to you what were the wasiyyah of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning now that this is what the children of Yaqub alayhi salam responded to him when he asked them a question. So were you present? Do you know about this one? Is qala, when he said, libanihi, to his sons, ma, what, ta'buduna, will you worship, ain badal is root, min ba'di, after me. So this is a very beautiful example of what is the main worry, what is the main concern of the pious people. This is the sunnah of the prophets. This is what we learn from the lives of prophets, that they are not worried about how much money their children will make, but they are worried about what they will do worshipping wise. Who will they worship? How will they spend their life? Will they spend their life according to Islam or not? So they keep giving their children reminders and they keep asking them. So it stays with them. Qalu, they said, Na'budu, we will worship ilahaka, your God. Wa ilaha, and the God, abaika, of your Abba, of your forefathers. And then they mentioned the names Ibrahima wa Ismaila wa Ishaqa. for us, the first part is very important, that قَالُوا نَعْبُدُ إِلَهَكَ. So we will worship your God. You have to understand from here that your children become you when they grow up. And most of the time, what happens is that whatever your lifestyle will be, it will become their lifestyle. Whoever you will worship, they will worship. Whatever rituals, whatever traditions you will follow, they will follow. So try to make sure that if you really want your children to be good Muslims, because most of the time what happens is parents just live their life in a certain way, and then they suddenly reach a point where they want their children to be really good Muslims. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us a parenting technique that you have to become what you want your children to become. Okay, and then the second part, wa ilaha abaika, is especially if we look from the point of view from the Jews and the people of the book who were not willing to accept Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as their prophet. And you can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that the children of Yaqub alayhi salam actually mentioned Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq alayhi salam. So they recognized that Ismail alayhi salam was on the same path as Ishaq alayhi salam, and they both connect to the same root as Ibrahim alayhi salam. So if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not coming from Bani Israel, then you do not need to make it an ego problem and do not need to reject him. If he is coming from the children of Ismail alayhi salam, then he should still be accepted. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses as the prophet, you're supposed to respect the prophet, you're supposed to follow the prophet, you're supposed to understand that this is a blessing and a mercy for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent guidance in your lifetime. Ilahan wahidan, the ilah who is one, wa nahnu, and we, lahu, to him, Muslimun, are submissive. So you can see the word Sin, Lam, Mim being repeated over here, which means there is so much emphasis on submission, on practicing according to Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the ones who pay attention to following the right path. When we are able to recognize and point out and identify the right kind of Muslims, then we should make dua and we should make intention that we want to follow, we want to live the same lifestyle as well. Do not keep justifying your own lifestyle and just praising the other person that this person is very trustworthy and this and that. Also, try to make sure that your words that come out of your mouth are really appropriate and nice, because if you look at this was wasiyyah from the Prophet to his children that try to die as a Muslim. So one more step that you can take towards a nice, pure Islamic death is that the words that come out of your mouth are proper, appropriate. If you're just used to saying curse words or singing songs, then at the time of death, the same kind of things will be coming out of your mouth. If you keep saying azkar most of the time, if you're used to saying shahada, if you're used to saying astaghfar, if you're used to making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then these are the kind of things that you'll be uttering at the time of death. And this is also reported by many 911 calls. They've observed that people do and speak what they're used to speaking, whatever language they're used to saying. So if you look at all these verses from today, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us a very clear awareness that these are all the things in our subconscious. We do like what is nice, what is more religious, what is more pious, but it is just that we have to take the action and we have to understand that we need to make an effort to be able to follow in the millat of Ibrahim alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a tawfiq to follow the millat of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam.